Will Putin pose attacks on Ukraine until talks with Trump? Hungary's ultimatum to Europe, pressure on Ukraine demanded. We'll talk about this with Michael Sheitelman, a political strategist based in Kyiv. Michael, glad to see you as always, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Olga. Thank you.
Michael, as President Donald Trump looks to fulfill what he says is his goal to be known as a peacemaker by setting the war in Ukraine, he's called for a direct line of communication with Russia's terrorist dictator Vladimir Putin multiple times during the first days of his second term, saying he really would like to be able to meet the Russian dictator soon to get that war ended. How does President Trump's approach to establishing direct communication with President Putin, terrorist Putin, reflect his overall foreign policy strategy? How do you think challenges could arise from President Trump's direct engagement with terrorist Putin to resolve the war in Ukraine?
Well, so from technical side, obviously, there is no problem to organize these meetings or phone calls, but it is not technical. This is political and diplomatic question. First of all, the sides, they should conclude what is the subject of negotiation exactly. And we start just from this basic point. And United States and Russian Federation, they think different about the subject of negotiation. United States and Mr. Trump, they want to negotiate about ending war in Ukraine, or at least to get him somehow to ceasefire in Ukraine. And this negotiation on the side of Mr. Trump should be about Ukraine, about the situation in Russia-Ukraine front line. That's it, point. But from Russian point of view, the negotiation is absolutely about some different topic, about different subject, about the war or confrontation between Russian Federation and NATO. And Russian Federation, they have some list of their offers about NATO-Russia relationship. They want NATO to remove some military bases from Baltic states, from Poland, from another post-Soviet countries, post-socialistic countries, let's say. And they want from United States to cut the quantity of soldiers in Europe. They want something from Finland, from Baltic Sea, from Sweden, etc., etc. And not only about Ukraine. And they say it openly. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russian Federation, Lavrov, he said, we don't want to negotiate about Ukraine. We want to negotiate future of Eurasia, future of Europe, and maybe future of the world. And we are ready to negotiate it with Mr. Trump. Spokesman of Mr. Putin, Mr. Peskov, he said, we are not ready to negotiate with Europeans. We are ready to negotiate with Americans about the future of Europe, not of Ukraine again. So the first very basic point is what is the subject for negotiation. And the second, that is the positions of two sides in these two parties of this negotiation. Now, Mr. Trump has his own vision and Mr. Putin his absolutely other vision. And this is very difficult to find the starting point for negotiation. So before to start negotiation by phone or personally, you should have common starting point and common subject. And this is the movements that now the team of Mr. Trump does towards Russia is to come to at least to this compromise. What we discuss about and what is our starting point.
Michael, also, how do you think will Putin pose attacks on Ukraine until talks with Trump? Because, for example, expert and former spokesperson for Ukraine's general staff, Vladislav Seleznyov, told RBC Ukraine that Russia has resources for further missile strikes on Ukraine, making it risky to assume that Russian leader, Russian terrorist Vladimir Putin will pose, hoping for certain agreements with the US President Donald Trump as military.
Well, Russia has this possibility, absolutely, from technical point of view, but they are very weakened last weeks after Ukrainians' attacks on Saratov region, where Russian strategic aviation is located, and there the main airfield, which is called Engels, is located. They start their attacks, and Ukrainian army strike very hard on this airfield and all the oil system and gasoline system in this city at all. And now the any possibilities of this strike are very limited, let's say. But this is possible. We can't say this is not possible, but this is very limited. So I believe that Russians, they don't want to just spend part of their missiles when they can't do the full-scale strike on Ukraine because of these technical limits which we put on them, which Ukrainian army put on them. Yeah. So this is not. This is only my point of view. It doesn't look like political questions not to strike Ukraine. It looks like more military problem for Russia. They are not ready from technical point of view.
Michael, Russia is ready for contacts with the United States at the level of presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said at the briefing on January 27th. The spokesperson said that so far we haven't received any signals from the Americans. Therefore, we are working according to our own schedule and readiness remains. The same readiness is also maintained on the American side. Clearly, some time is needed. It's quote. Peskov's remarks about Putin's readiness to talk to Trump are almost identical to his statement made on January 24th, isn't it? And how do you think? Maybe it's demonstration that Russia is waiting for for reaction from United States of America, from Donald Trump.
Okay, this quote from Mr. Peskov, it is obvious lie, because everybody in the world who listened to Mr. Trump last week, we heard personally from him that he said, I am ready to negotiate. So what is signal you need more than just direct words from President of United States? So obviously that is about anything else. And anything else is they want Mr. Trump, President Trump, to change his starting position. Starting position of Mr. Trump is very, very primitive, very, very simple. He said to Mr. Putin, stop the war, just stop a war, let's do the ceasefire. This is the first. Second, we postponed membership of Ukraine in NATO at least for 10 or 20 years. And third, we will bring international military forces from European Union, Germans, British, French, Italian, to Ukrainian territory and put them on the front line, on the current front line. That's only 3 points in this offer, not more. There's no such complicated plans when we see sometimes in some press some complicated plans of tens of points. Yeah, Mr. Trump has only 3 points. And he offered that to Mr. Putin in very ultimative form, like take it or leave it. He de facto he said this in his social network: or you take it, or you leave it. And in this case, we just put more sanctions on your country, on the Russian Federation. And Russian plan is very, very complicated. And Russians, they want more and more and more, like to cut Ukrainian army, to not to bring the European forces, but to bring some Belarusian forces to Ukrainian territory. And they want election in Ukraine, for example, general election in Ukraine. They want Mr. Zelensky to leave his position as president of Ukraine. So they want to interfere in Ukrainian democracy, which is absolutely senseless, because Ukrainian people, they could to elect Mr. Zelensky again the day after the war ends, for example. So they just don't understand in Russia how the democracy in Ukraine works. They don't believe in that. They really think, really, from these demands from Russian side, we could see that Russians, I mean Kremlin, they believe that in White House they appoint new Ukrainian president. That not the Ukrainian nation choose the Ukrainian president, but President of America appoints the Ukrainian president. It looks like that. So Russians want a lot of different things connected to Ukraine, not connected to Ukraine, which is a part of internal policy of Ukraine. Oh, for example, they want a Russian language as official language in Ukraine, which is, again, which is senseless. This is not something which connects to Russian Federation. This is an inner equation of Ukraine, what language we are speaking here. So this is the main difficulty in all of these contacts. And Russians, they want Mr. Trump to answer to all of these points and this question. They want Mr. Trump to discuss about election in Ukraine or official language in Ukraine or something like that. And Mr. Trump don't care about that and never said any word about that, just any. And he will never do that. This is the difference between the position, and this is a political maneuver which Mr. Putin takes now.
Yes, President Donald Trump has only communicated with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin through intermediaries, notably Chinese leader Xi Jinping, stated historian and diplomat Roman Besmertny in a commentary to the RBC Ukraine YouTube channel. So in all this communication, what do you think about Xi Jinping, about his position?
I don't believe this is the only way, because I absolutely persuaded that they have a lot of lines, and administration of Mr. Putin and administration of Mr. Trump, they have just daily communication. Every day they communicate one with other. So the only role of Mr. Xi, of President Xi, could be to persuade Putin personally and to say what the consequences from Trump's side, they are realistic. That really President Trump will put the new total sanctions against Russian Federation. In this, let's say, open letter from Trump to Putin, which was in the social network of Mr. Trump, he said, one offer is immediately to sign ceasefire. Another offer, we immediately put on your country sanctions against all the goods you sell towards United States or you sell to our allies in Europe. It means all the oil, all the gas, all the metals, etc., etc., etc. And it means the collapse of Russian economy. And but they need the help from President Xi's side to say that China, for example, will also follow these sanctions. China are not ready to be on this conflict on Russian side openly. I mean, they are not ready to go against Trump, Chinese. So this is the only role of President Xi.
Michael, you remembered about Belarus, and Alexander Lukashenko, the self-proclaimed president of Belarus, has said that only Belarusian peacekeepers could ensure normal relations between Ukraine and Russia, but Minsk will not send them to the line of contact. First question, does he believe in what he's saying? And your reaction on peacekeepers, on Belarusian peacekeepers?
Well, Mr. Lukashenko obviously was asked by Mr. Putin to offer Belarusian peacekeepers, because peacekeepers, this is one very tough question in this negotiation. President Trump and Western world offers Western peacekeepers from European Union mostly, and President Putin is just 100% not ready to allow any Western military forces on the territory of Ukraine, because he started the war for not allow NATO to put their forces and their bases to Ukrainian territory. And now he will receive exactly this situation, NATO forces on Ukrainian territory. So now we started to search for any alternative route. And alternative route could be Belarusian forces, Chinese forces, some Indians or somebody. And Belarusian so-called leader Lukashenko offer is just the first in this very, very long row, I believe, of these offers. We will receive offers from Indonesian or Malaysian or Nigerian or somebody else. But de facto, all of these offers will be from Mr. Putin. And another route is European. It was a couple of days ago when one of European, it is not minister, he is just like a defense director of European Union, some general, I don't remember his name. He said that probably Europe could send not only European peace forces, but some third side peace forces also to this front line. And he offered, it was a very strange offer, I say, he offered cautious military forces. And I thought, okay, Georgian, Armenian, Azerbaijani, that is very strange offer, because Armenians and Azerbaijan army, they just stopped the war between them. So how they could be peacekeepers, not obvious. Armenia is the military ally of Russian Federation. And Belarus, by the way, military ally of Russian Federation. So officially. So Belarusian forces, they could stay only on the Russian side, not on the Ukrainian side of the front line, because they are allies of Russians. And the same situation with Armenians, for example. So all of these Belarusian offers, they are, let's say, absolute bullshit, really.
I agree with you. And also, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the leader of the Belarusian opposition, believes that Ukrainians' victory in the war could become an opportunity for a regime change in Belarus. How does the Belarusian regime's current alignment with Russia affect the possibility of change after Ukrainians' victory?
I believe that in this case, Russian defeat is more important than Ukrainian victory. Ukraine will not take a direct part in changes in Belarus, because Ukraine doesn't have enough forces for that. But the defeat of Russian Federation will bring to the change of power in Russian Federation. I don't say to revolution, I don't say to fall of regime, but change of power. Some other people will take a power in Kremlin, and that means that Belarus, they will have some time slot for change inside Belarus. Because nobody in Russia will care about what happens in Belarus at this time. This is the only chance in foreseeable future for Belarusians to change the fate of their own country. And that depends only on Belarusians generally. They have military forces. I mean, okay, this is just one small group of soldiers and officers in Ukrainian army, which is the Belarusian forces. Belarusian by nation and by passport, by nationality, and they are ready to start the war, I believe, against Belarusian official forces. But Belarusian official army also doesn't have to stay on the Mr. Lukashenko side, and we also have hundreds of thousands or millions of Belarusian citizens in Poland and in Lithuania who are ready to come back to Belarus and to change the regime. After some changes, yeah, because last time on the last election, okay, today also there was an election in Belarus, so-called election, but the last election, real election in 2020, then Mr. Lukashenko lost this election to Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. At this point, Lukashenko's regime stayed only because of Russian support. And support was physical support, not the political support or economical support, physical. Russians, they sent troops to Minsk. They sent police forces to Minsk to stop the protests. And so only at the moment then Russians will be very busy with their Russians' problem, so Belarusians, they will have a chance to the freedom and to more bright future than now.
Hope for this, Michael, and also self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, has said that he does not care whether the West recognizes the presidential elections. Reported by Belarusian state-owned news outlet Belta, Lukashenko said that whether the European Union recognizes these elections or not is a matter of taste. Believe me, I assure you, I don't care whether you recognize our elections or not. The main thing for me is that Belarusians recognize these elections and led them and peacefully as they began. This is the main thing. It was quote, what should the West's reaction be? Can additional sanctions be imposed, in your opinion?
No, it doesn't look like new sanctions, because all the sanctions, Europeans put three stages of sanctions on Belarusian regime. First, big sanctions were imposed on 2020 after the faked election by Mr. Lukashenko and repression against Belarusian nation, 2020. Afterwards, in 2021, when Belarus has stolen European airplane, civil airplane, which was flew over the territory of Belarus and was not shut down, but forced to land inside Belarusian territory, and Belarusian security forces, they kidnapped people from this plane. So Belarus received the new portion of sanctions, and the biggest sanctions the European Union put on Belarus in March 2022, after the war started and Belarus participated on this war. But why, after the summer of 2022, European Union and US almost doesn't not put any new sanctions on Belarus? We don't know it officially, but it looks like we have some separatist peace agreement between Belarus and Ukraine. We can see that during more than 2 years, no strikes from Belarusian territory on Ukrainian cities, no penetration of Russian forces to Ukrainian territory from Belarusian territory. So Belarus de facto now is not in the war, and it couldn't be just the goodwill of Mr. Lukashenko. He sold that to European Union somehow for exchange on non-Putin new sanctions on Belarus. So nothing changes if the new formal election which happened yesterday. Just no any changes, and I don't believe to any new sanctions. And he is right about that. He doesn't care if anybody in the West recognize him president or not. He knows clearly that till his death, he will be non-official or how self-proclaimed Belarusian president, and nobody in the world except of some China or Russia will recognize him. His official career as one of legitimate leaders is ended in 2020.
Michael, but we believe in free Belarus, as you said, and also about next news that about pressure on Ukraine. Hungary secured the inclusion of a commitment in the European statement on energy security, agreeing to support the continuation of sanctions against Russia in exchange for the European Commission's promise to continue discussions with Ukraine on oil and gas transit. Doesn't this sound like an ultimatum? What impact will Hungary's agreement to support sanctions against Russia have on its relationship with other European member states?
You know, the good news here that Hungary did not put their veto on the renewal of sanctions, and we're very fierce about that. So now we are ready to negotiate with European Union, and we are ready to say no, we are not ready to transit gas. I more believe that in this case, this is not exactly it is not exactly about the negotiation between Ukraine and European Union. This is the obligation of European Union somehow to supply gas to Hungary, somehow to supply, to find any way, through Turkey, for example, or from Norway, or from Qatar, or somehow else, because they are a landlocked country, and they received the gas from the pipeline. They can't receive the gas from United States by ships. They can't receive the liquid gas from Qatar, and this is their big problem. They can't receive any gas from anywhere except of this Russian pipeline. So Europeans, they took on European Union some obligation to supply somehow, to find the way how to supply gas to Hungary, and not how to persuade Ukraine to transit some gas. This is big difference. For example, you can replace Russian gas with Azerbaijani gas, but not through Ukrainian territory. From Azerbaijan, you could supply that to Turkey, and from Turkey to South Europe, and from South Europe to Hungary. And the only obligation of European Union is to somehow to supply that to Hungary.
Also, Michael, I see that Andrzej Duda, President of Poland, said that gas flows from Russia to Western Europe should never be restored, even if Russia and Ukraine reach a peace agreement. Duda said in an interview with BBC that the Nord Stream gas pipelines, which have not been in use since 2022, should be dismantled. And also he said that this would mean that countries such as, for example, Germany would not be tempted to resume Russian supplies to support their struggling economies. Do you agree?
This is very good news and very important point. Absolutely. One of the most important point in any ceasefire negotiation is the sanctions on Russia and continuation of sanctions about Russia on Russian Federation. First, because also the Trump administration understands that. They, first of all, Kit Kellogg, on his first offer, brought this position that sanctions on Russia will stay till the full agreement, peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine, and not after ceasefire agreement. Full peace agreement, it means the withdrawal of all Russian troops from all the Ukrainian occupied territories. They said that openly in Kit Crunch offer. So we understand that without sanctions, we will never return our occupied territories. So we will be never peace between Russia and Ukraine, because everybody understands that this current negotiation in 2025 is not about peace agreement. This is about ceasefire agreement, which is very, very, very big difference. Second point is about these Polish quotes. That is not enough only to put the sanctions, but very important is not to make from Russia some strategic partner in energy again. And Germans, they understand that. I remember that some minister of energy of Germany or somebody like that, I don't remember exactly the name, formal name of his position, he said that after the war, we will not restart the agreement with Russian Federation about the gas, because Russia is not trustable country, is not trustable partner. We can't trust anybody like Russia, and our gas situation and our energy situation can't be depends on some country which we don't trust. So I believe that a lot of countries will not be ready to renew these agreements with Russian Federation. But this is important point, and this Polish president brings this important point that it will be not allowed. The important point of this negotiation is to write it down in the ceasefire agreement that all the sanctions on Russian Federation, they stay on full value till the peace agreement with withdrawal of all the Russian forces from Ukrainian territory, and also only after full payment of reparation from Russian side.
Michael, thank you, as always, for this interesting and important conversation. Michael Sheitelman, a political strategist based in Kyiv, was with us today. We wish you all the best and see you.
See you. Thank you. Bye.